Menopause. Lots of people have heard the word, but many, especially men, have no idea what it is. Let's talk about that. How's it going, guys? My name's Richie Kirwan, and today we're going to talk about menopause. What it is, what it does to a woman's body, why you should know about it, and the diet and exercise strategies women can use during it. Oh, and for all the guys watching, I can promise that it'll be worth your while learning a little about this. Before we get into it, I want to say a big thank you to Amanda Thieb, author of Menopocalypse, for all the feedback and input on the content in this video. Now, I also want to point out that none of what I say here should be considered medical advice. And in fact, I'll discuss how important proper medical treatment can be during menopause. What I want to do with this video is create some awareness about menopause because it doesn't get a lot of attention in the mainstream. And that's just wrong, considering it'll affect half of the people on Earth. At this point, for all the guys who are thinking this doesn't matter to them and want to click on yet another video on how to grow your biceps, menopause is something that will affect your mother, your sister, your female friends, and maybe even your future partner. Understanding what it is will help you understand a little of what they'll have to go through, and there's nothing wrong with a little empathy. So basically, menopause is all about hormones. From the time kids hit puberty, they see a massive increase in the production of sex hormones, testosterone in men and estrogen and progesterone in women. Those hormones are produced by the ovaries throughout a woman's reproductive life, and they control the development of a woman's secondary sexual characteristics, like breast growth and hip widening, as well as controlling a woman's monthly cycle. In men, testosterone production starts to decline very gradually from their 30s, and that also happens in women. But a lot more happens too. You see, when women hit their late 40s or early 50s, they experience a massive and sudden change in estrogen and progesterone levels. In fact, the change in the body's hormone levels is so significant that it leads to all of the physical symptoms of menopause, which we're going to talk about in a moment. The very beginning of menopause is called perimenopause, and it's when symptoms start. Some, but not all, women start to get irregular periods, which can mean shorter or longer cycles depending on the stage of menopause. When a woman has gone a whole year without a period, that's when she is officially menopausal. Now, at this point, some people might think not having to deal with periods anymore doesn't sound so bad. Well, wait, there's more. The thing is, the change in hormone levels around menopause has a phenomenal effect on women's bodies. For example, some of the more common symptoms and conditions associated with menopause are hot flashes and night sweats, which can happen in 75% of menopausal women and can last for years, and in some cases, decades. There are also heart palpitations, sleep disturbances, osteoporosis, which leads to brittle bones and a higher risk of fractures, mood disturbances like anxiety, depression, even foggy thinking, loss of libido and sexual dysfunction, cognitive decline, including Alzheimer's disease, and even heart disease. And virtually every woman you know will have to go through some of these symptoms. That's how relevant this is. On top of that, around menopause, women start to see changes in their bodies that can include gaining extra body fat, loss of muscle tone, and they may notice that they're storing fat in different parts of their bodies than before. Now, the increase in body weight may have a lot to do with the loss of sleep quality women experience during menopause. If you've seen my video on sleep, you'll remember that a lack of sleep can lead to an increase in appetite and a desire for high carb and high fat, highly processed foods. Lack of sleep also makes people less likely to follow healthy lifestyle habits like eating fruit and vegetables and exercising. And related to that, studies have shown a drop in women's activity levels around menopause too. On top of that, a lack of sleep can also lead to muscle loss, as can a drop in estrogen levels. You see, in women, estrogen carries out many of the same functions of testosterone in men. So it's really important for maintaining muscle size. As we get older, muscle loss naturally occurs for a number of reasons, and the hormonal changes play a big role too. A loss of muscle means someone will have a slightly lower basal metabolic rate, which can make weight gain easier. And yes, there's more. The change in hormones around menopause can also change a woman's body fat distribution. You see, with normal estrogen and progesterone levels, most women tend to store body fat around their bum and their hips. This is called a gynoid fat distribution, and we know that it's a healthier way to store fat compared to the way that men store fat. You see, men tend to store body fat around their waist, around their abdomen, and this is called an android fat distribution, which is associated with a higher risk of heart disease. But when menopause hits, many women's body fat distribution can start to switch from the healthier gynoid to the less healthy android or male type fat distribution. Women also tend to see an increase in visceral fat or fat around the organs in the abdomen. High levels of visceral fat are particularly bad for our health, as they secrete a number of chemical signals that lead to higher levels of inflammation, high blood pressure, poor blood glucose control, and high triglycerides. This is one of the reasons why younger women have a much lower rate of heart disease compared to men. That all changes though when a woman enters menopause, and her risk of heart disease massively increases. Now, this is the point of the video where I'm supposed to tell you how you can balance your menopausal hormones with a load of supplements, right? Absolutely not. If you ever hear a nutritionist, or basically anyone who is not a doctor, speaking about balancing hormones around menopause, you can just assume that they are talking absolute and are probably trying to sell you something. Here's the thing. If a woman has gone through menopause, she is never going to naturally restore her former hormone production. But there is something she can do, and it's called menopause hormone therapy, or MHT. In MHT, a woman takes either estrogen alone or a combination of estrogen and progesterone, depending on what her doctor deems appropriate, to supplement the hormones she doesn't produce anymore. You may have heard of HRT before, which stands for hormone replacement therapy, but this term isn't used as much anymore as the hormones aren't replaced to their previous levels. That's why menopause hormone therapy is the more appropriate term these days. That said, I'm going to use the term HRT in this video because it's what people are familiar with. Remember all those horrible symptoms of menopause I mentioned earlier? Well, HRT can actually improve all of them. And not only that, but women who take HRT have a higher quality of life, many have a lower risk of heart disease and a lower risk of a number of other diseases, and they also tend to live longer too. The problem is that about 20 years ago, HRT got a really bad reputation because of early results from a famous study called the Women's Health Initiative, which claimed that HRT was associated with a greater risk of breast cancer. That result received a huge amount of media attention, and because of that, many women, even today, avoid HRT because of the fear of breast cancer. However, later, more complete and longer-term results from the exact same study showed that HRT was actually associated with a lower risk of breast cancer. Now, I'm a nutritionist, and it's not my place to recommend HRT to anyone because it's genuinely not for everyone. But I do recommend to all of my own female clients who are going through menopause to speak with their doctors about their suitability for HRT. Now, even if you can't balance your hormones with diet, women going through the menopause can do a lot to improve their health and quality of life with diet and exercise. From an exercise perspective, resistance exercise like lifting weights or circuit training is really important for helping to maintain and even build muscle, which both men and women lose more easily as they age. It's also essential for helping to maintain bone density and strength as women get older. Now, I've done a video on muscle loss as we age, or sarcopenia, which is my field of research before. So if you want more information on muscle loss and what you can do to prevent it, check it out here. Regular cardiovascular exercise like jogging or cycling is also essential for maintaining heart health. On the nutrition side, protein is a major nutrient to consider as women get older. If you're doing resistance exercise, protein can help to maintain and build more lean muscle size and strength. It can also help to keep us feeling fuller for longer, so it's useful to help keep people from overeating, which, as we mentioned, might be an issue for some during menopause. We know that as we get older, building and maintaining muscle gets harder because of something called anabolic resistance. This means older people need more protein than younger people for building muscle. That's why aiming for at least 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal is a good idea. Great sources of protein include lean meats, fish, eggs, low-fat dairy like Greek yogurt, quark, and skyr, and vegetarian sources like tofu, corn, as well as beans, peas, and legumes. In terms of improving heart health, which is a major concern for menopausal women, there are a lot of nutritional options to consider. I've spoken in detail about cholesterol in one of my previous videos, but one way to support long-term heart health is to keep your LDL cholesterol in a healthy range. You can do that by reducing your intake of saturated fat, which is found in foods like fatty cuts of meat, full-fat dairy, and many processed foods. High levels of saturated fat can increase LDL cholesterol. That doesn't mean you have to cut these foods out entirely. You can replace fatty meat with lean red meat, chicken, turkey, and fish, and you can switch some full-fat dairy for lower fat or fat-free dairy alternatives. You should also think about getting more unsaturated fats, which help to lower LDL cholesterol levels. You can get unsaturated fats from olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds, and fatty fish like salmon or mackerel. The long-chain unsaturated omega-3 fats in fish also have the added benefit of reducing blood triglycerides, which is also important for heart health. Getting plenty of fibre is really important for your cholesterol levels too, as fibre, particularly soluble fibre, is great for helping us to excrete excess cholesterol out of our digestive system. Great sources of fibre include fruits and vegetables, but you can get lots of soluble fibre from whole grains like oats and barley, which can be used to make porridge, legumes like beans and peas, which are a great addition to most diets, and seeds like ground flax seeds. Sticking to a mostly unprocessed or minimally processed diet with lots of different types of plants like fruit, vegetables, whole grains, legumes and nuts and seeds is also a really good way to keep you feeling fuller for longer and can help you maintain a healthy weight. Now, something women going through menopause often get told is that menopause causes them to become insulin resistant, which means they shouldn't eat carbs anymore. This is a perfect example of how science can get mistranslated into bad advice. Yes, insulin sensitivity, or our ability to react to insulin to help control our blood sugar, does get poorer around menopause. But amazingly, taking HRT improves insulin sensitivity, as does getting regular exercise. So if you're doing both of those, it's a moot point. Even if someone is insulin resistant, they still don't need to eliminate carbs from their diet. You can still have a perfectly healthy diet by including many whole food sources of carbs. In terms of supplements, you don't need to use protein powders, but they can be really useful and convenient for women who find it hard to get enough protein from whole foods. I always recommend trying to get your protein from whole food sources when possible. But when you need some extra help, that's exactly what protein powders and other supplements are for. Creatine can be another great supplement for women during menopause, as it helps to improve muscle strength and power, which can allow women to train harder and build and maintain more muscle. Creatine has also been shown to have benefits on cognitive function or brain health, which can be really important around menopause too. Lastly, a good quality fish oil supplement can be useful for people who don't eat oily fish at least twice a week or who don't like fish at all. Remember, long-chain omega-3s found in fish oil can help to reduce triglycerides and improve heart health. Now, that was a huge amount of information, but I hope you at least have a better understanding of what menopause is and how it can affect women's health. And remember, if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. And remember to like and subscribe to the Myprotein YouTube channel for more great evidence-based nutrition information.